Good day, everybody. Well, today I thought I'd make a green bean stew. Very few basic ingredients here. Of course, you gotta have some salt pork to make it. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim some of the fat off, especially the skin part. I don't know. I find if you leave it on there, it'll kind of, I don't know, it'll kind of give it a different flavor that I really don't like. So I usually take the skin and just remove it. So now we'll go ahead and cut it in some cubes, about that size, because you don't want them to cook to nothing. So let me get all that cut up, then I'll show you the next step. And let's see how much we got here. Got it all cut up. Got the bone too, but I'm not going to use that in my stew. Got about 14 ounces of raw salt pork. And basically we'll just take our salt pork here and we'll go ahead and boil it for about 10 minutes in some boiling water, just to remove a little bit of the salt. That way the stew won't be over salty. And we'll reserve the liquid. So if we do need to add salt to the stew later, we'll use the liquid for the stew. And this is some homemade roux I made a while back in the microwave. I'm gonna use a little bit of the oil from it to saute the vegetables in. So maybe I don't know, half of a tablespoon maybe. We'll let that get up to temperature, and then I'll put in my seasoning blend. And for this step, I'm actually going to use 1 cup of the seasoning blend. Half a cup wasn't quite enough. And that's about it. As you're cooking your salt pork, they might have a little bit of some foam that might kind of come up to the top, and I'll usually try to skim that off. And I'm cooking the vegetables while the salt meat is boiling, so they'll each take about 10 minutes. So I started them both at the same time, so when the salt meat's done, my vegetables will be done. So that way you ain't got to cook them, separate, and you're waiting on one or the other. And you can kind of see what's in that seasoning blend. They got red bell pepper. They definitely got a parsley in there. They got onions, and I'm pretty sure they got some parsley or green onion tops in there. So pretty much everything you need. All right, my salt meat's done. Go ahead and pour that through a colander, and we'll just kind of let it strain. We'll reserve the water in case we need it to saute our stew with, and I will go ahead and start browning the meat. I always rather take my vegetables out, so I'm gonna just kind of take them out, put them in a plate, and then I'll get the I'll start sauteing the actual meat just to get a little brown on it. It'll just help the flavor. I mean, you really don't have to if you don't want, but I tend to brown. I try to brown my meats when I make a stew. I don't know, to me it just tastes better. And we'll go ahead and use the same oil that I've been using before. This is my roux oil. When you make a roux, it'll kind of eventually, especially when you put it in the refrigerator, the oil will kind of separate from the roux itself. Now we'll go ahead and put in our salt meat. And we'll saute this until we get a nice little brown on it. And the pot I'm using today is a Cuisinart French Classic Dutch oven. I think it's a 4.5 quart. To me, it's a perfect pot for cooking a stew in. All right, we've got about 5 minutes, and as you can see, we got a nice brown starting on our pork meat. Like I said, I got my fire on pretty low. Once your pot gets hot, I mean, you don't really have to crank up the heat because then it'll burn. So just keep it on low and just keep, sauteing it until we get a nice little brown on all sides of it. Got a nice little brown starting on the fat portion of them. Now we'll go ahead and add 2 cups of water to it. As well as we'll put it back in our sauteed vegetables that we got a little translucent. And we'll put in our seasoning mix now. We got a half of a teaspoon of our Cajun seasoning. We got 1 bay leaf, 1/4 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Kind of scrape that out a little bit. And we got 1 teaspoon of some minced garlic. We'll add that to it. And we'll just kind of get this combined. And also at this stage, go ahead and add, this is 1/4 of a cup of roux. Make a nice little thick gravy with it as well. Gotta have a little roux in there. I mean, after all, we are making a stew. So let me go ahead and get that well combined. And then if I need to, I'll add a little bit more liquid. I don't want to add too much to start because my plan is to use the liquid from the boiled salt pork. Let's go ahead and cover it. We'll just let it cook until the meat gets tender. And we're pretty thick right now with the roux, since I added the roux. So I'm gonna go ahead and put about another cup of water in it. So that's basically 3 cups of water we're gonna start with. And basically we just let this cook. Like I said, I want to cook it until the meat gets pretty tender. I'm not adding the green beans yet because they'll basically fall apart before the end of the cooking. So I want to get the meat pretty much tender first. All right, we had about the 30-minute mark. I went ahead and tasted my gravy. Salt's good. Like I said, salt meat, you really never know if it's going to be too salty or not salty enough, but it's always a good idea to boil it for about 10 minutes before you cook with it. So my gravy is nice and salty, so I'm not adding any of my liquid that I reserved for it. Salt meat is not tender yet, so I'm gonna just keep letting it cook. And I'm gonna add about another half a cup of, I'm gonna add one cup of water here. And there's our water. Like I said, just a little bit. I like adding it gradually, not all at one time. So you can always add it, but it's hard to take it out, just like with salt. So just keep letting it simmer on a low heat. I'm thinking probably another 20-25 minutes or so. And then my salt meat should be tender enough. Then I'm gonna add my green beans. All right, since I added the water and the meat, we've been cooking about 55 minutes. The salt meat is just getting to the stage where it's starting to get a little tender. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my bag of green beans to it. This is 12 ounces of green beans, previously frozen. I've been letting them defrost while everything was cooking. And we're just gonna let this simmer until the beans get nice and cooked. I'm thinking probably another, we'll see. I got my stopwatch still going here, so. And this is totally optional, but I got a can of some fresh whole potatoes. I drained them, cut them in half. I'm gonna add that to it as well. Potatoes and green beans go so good together. Wasn't sure if I was gonna put them, but I decided to give it a nice little flavor. Now this might soak in some of the salt, so in about 20 minutes I'm gonna taste the gravy again and see if I gotta add any water to it. And if I do, I'm gonna use my salt water that I boiled the salt pork in. So like I said, just let it simmer. All right, total cook time was 1 hour and 25 minutes. That's how we look. Gravy's nice and thick. My meat's nice and tender. You don't want to overcook the potatoes where they fall apart, or the green beans. But the green beans are done now. They're nice and wilted. That's how they should be. So let's get it plated up and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is definitely a different stew. My grandma used to make this stew when we was growing up. So I figured I'd kind of recreate it today, though I'm sure it's not going to be as good as hers. But put you some potatoes, put you some of the salt meat, some of the gravy, of course, gotta have that, and some pretty good amount of the green beans, and there you go, a salt pork green bean stew. But this is really just called a green bean stew, and that's how you pretty much do it. Very simple, don't take too much time, and delicious. So that's how we look. Like I said, very easy, very delicious. Got a little bit of my salt meat, green bean, a little bit of rice and gravy. Let's see what it tastes like. You'll be very, very impressed making this. Delicious. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. Thanks.